I am a soldier in the army of the Lord, and I am on the battlefield for my Lord, for He has called me to do so. Amen. And how could any of us, when He called us to salvation, when He called us to teach, when He called us to preach, how could we say no? When we recognize, know what God does for us, what He has done all the days of our lives, bringing us to this point in our lives where we are today. And we find in Matthew chapter 10 that Jesus had called His disciples to Him, and He had given to them power. See, when God gives you power to cast out unclean spirits and heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease, it won't be a secret to you. He will let you know that He's done that, and He will let you know that you have the power to do that, and He will send you to utilize that power. You will be the vessel that He uses to deliver that person or persons from all manner of diseases, sickness, and casting out any devils that might be present. But if He don't tell you that, don't you pick that up talking about that's what you have. Don't let anybody convince you by going to apostle schools, by going to things of that nature, talking about that you have power. Don't get yourself involved talking about you're going to, what do they call this stuff? Classes to where you're speaking in tongues. There is no such thing as classes to where you can speak in tongue. Now, if you take classes to speak in tongue, all you're doing is taking a class to speak a different language. Because see, you don't need to practice speaking another language if God gives you utterance. So let's get that out of the way as we delve into today's sermon. Jesus told them that as they went, first of all, don't go into the region of the Gentiles or the Samaritans, but go rather to the lost sheep of Israel. They were God's chosen people to bring His word to the world. And they had gotten out of fellowship with Him, and they were lost. And He told them, as you go, preach, saying the kingdom of heaven is at hand. The kingdom of heaven is near. The kingdom of heaven is before you. One day it'll be on earth just like it is in heaven. That is so far down the road to where we won't be here during that time. Not living the way that we are. And He told them to heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out devils. And then He reminded them, freely you have received and freely give. Don't charge for what God has given to you to do for God's people. We find that in these days and time that Jesus was in, even before that, in Malachi's day, even into this day, in the year AD 2020, we find preachers charging people for things that are God's. They got it freely, so you give it freely. That brings us to where the sermon will begin, Matthew chapter 10, verse 9. And Jesus had told them, now understand, Jesus has established himself and is still in the process of establishing himself as the Son of God, the only begotten of the Father, him who came from heaven on our behalf to bring to us salvation. He's still in the process of establishing himself. And the disciples, who will later become the apostles, are seeing the power that's in Jesus from God. And he told them as they travel, Matthew chapter 10 verse 9, provide neither gold nor silver nor brass in your purses. He said, when you go, don't take gold with you, a trading tool. Don't take silver with you, a trading tool. Don't take brass with you. And during this time, there were small pieces of money that were made of brass. So he's given to them to see, don't take anything of value with you. Making provisions for yourself. Told them, don't do that. He said, nor scrip for your journey, neither two coats, neither shoes, nor yet staffs. Now, what Jesus is saying when he told them, don't take gold, silver, nor brass, don't take any money with you, and he said, nor scrip for your journey, nor provisions that shepherds and those that would travel would wear around their neck in a leathern bag, or a bag made of very sturdy material for their provisions as they travel. He said, don't take that. Don't take a scrip for your journey. Neither two coats. He said, don't go home and get another coat. Neither shoes. He said, you don't need an extra pair of shoes. Nor yet staffs. He said, if you're not accustomed to carrying a walking stick, don't go get one. But if you are accustomed to carrying a staff or a walking stick, then take that. He said, you don't need to take anything other than what you have with you now. He's letting them know, go as you are. As you are standing before me now, that's how you go. If you have on your tunic, and then you have on an outer garment, and then you have your covering for night, being in the cold or whatever, if that's what you have on, that's what you take. But don't go home and get anything extra. That's what we find when we look at this in the original text and the meaning in the original text. He went on to say, for the workman is worthy of his meat. He gave to them to understand, when you are working on behalf of the gospel, you are worthy of the food that you get. You are worthy for someone to help you along the way. And we're going to see that described here. Jesus said the workman. See, everybody that proclaimed this gospel, that's supposed to be the workman, and I'm talking about the preachers, are not working. That's why he said the workman is worthy of his meat. The worker is worthy of his food. If the preacher is bringing the gospel of Jesus Christ the way that it is on the page, not adding to or taking from, then he is worthy to eat. He didn't say you are worthy of 2 vehicles provided by the church. He didn't say you were worthy of credit cards provided by the church. He didn't say that you were worthy of having your own gas card provided by the church. He didn't say that the church needs to provide insurance for you and your family. He said you are worthy to eat as you travel because you are a workman in the gospel. Oh, I know it's a lot of preachers not going to like it, but it don't matter to me, because if you want to get mad at God. Get mad at Jesus. He's the one who put it here. I'm just repeating what's on the page, so I can handle whatever you bring, because I'm going to stick with what's on the page. Jesus said the workman is worthy of his meat. He didn't say of a donkey. He didn't say of a stallion horse. He didn't say of a gold shield and a gold sword. He said you are worthy to eat when you travel, because you are a workman taking the gospel from this place to that one. Verse 11, Matthew chapter 10, verse 11. He went on to say, and into whatsoever city or town ye shall enter, inquire in it, inquire who in it is worthy. Jesus said, into whatsoever city or town ye shall enter, inquire who in it is worthy. Let's look at that in the original text and see the meaning of what Jesus was giving to them. When he said inquire to see who is worthy, he said you have to ask around to find out, first of all, who is ready to receive and embrace salvation. Then you have to see who is able to help you on your journey. See, you can be ready to receive salvation and embrace it, but be poor and barely providing for your family. Jesus didn't want them to put a burden on somebody. He wanted them to go to someone who was ready to embrace salvation, and those who were able to put up guests for the night. Because Jesus didn't want them to be a burden on anybody. And then he didn't want them out there traveling, going from place to place in a town, house to house in a town, like they were beggars. So he said, when you get to wherever you're going, first of all, find out who wants to embrace salvation. Then find out if they are able to assist you on your way. See, that's why he told them, don't take any provisions with you, because the workman is worthy of his meat. The workman is worthy to eat food for the belly while you're traveling, because you're going to need to eat. You can take it and expand it however you want to, but that's not what it says here. Then, after he said, inquire who in it is worthy, he went on to say, and there abide till ye go thence. He said, stay there until it's time for you to leave. So, we find that Jesus has given to them to utilize power against unclean spirits, to cast them out, to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. We find that he told them to go to the lost sheep of Israel, and that they were not to take gold nor silver nor brass in their girdles, in their purses. In the original text it says girdles. And all that is not girdles like we think of today that women wear. That's not it. What it is it's a hollow place that you make in your on the outer garment of your tunic or whatever, that you fold up, make a hollow place to put your valuables. And then he also told them, freely you have received, freely give. Don't charge for what you do. Now, we know that they are to avoid rich people. Because, see, the influence of rich people, when you see the things that they have and they start bargaining with you, saying that if you do this, you can have that, so forth and so on, it might sway a not so well-rounded person. We don't find them going to rich people, but we find them going to those that wanted to embrace salvation and were able to provide for company, to provide for travelers. Didn't have to be rich for that, but able to do it. Then he said in verse 12, when you go in there, when you come into an house, salute it. And what Jesus is saying is, when you get there, and these things are in your favor to where they're ready to embrace salvation, and they can take in travelers, and it won't be a hardship on them, he said, salute the house. He said, provide your peace to that house, to that family. Oh, when you look at the doors of peace that open, oh, you'll be surprised at what you find. He said, when you come into a house, salute it. And they saluted it by saying something like, peace unto you, peace be unto you, so forth and so on. We find the Muslims in America saying that all the time in the Hebrew text. In the Hebrew language, should I say. Excuse me. But he said, salute that house. Provide, give your peace to that house. And we know that in giving peace to that house, they will be provided for by God. Verse 13. And if the house be worthy, we've already described what being worthy is. And if the house be worthy, let your peace come up on it. Because see, they left with peace, they're carrying peace, and they can pray for peace upon those that help them in their travels, and God will honor them. He said, and if the house be worthy, let your peace come up on it, because Jesus gave them peace. So Jesus is letting them know, I will honor. If you ask it, I will honor it if that house be worthy to receive you. He said, but if it be not worthy, if they tell you that they are ready to embrace salvation, and you get there and you start teaching it and they reject it and don't want to have anything to do with it, he said, then let your peace return unto you. So Jesus is letting them know, so the blessing that I would have given to them, because you asked me and they were worthy, but you found out that they were not worthy. If I would have answered that and given to them that peace that I gave to you to give to them, if you find that they're not worthy, then let your peace return unto you. So the blessings I would have given to them for helping you along the way is going to come back to you. So you're still not going to suffer. Understand that. When we look at peace, how do we see it? In what areas do we see peace? How broad do we look at peace? Usually when we look at peace in the language that we speak, we're talking about peace from violence. But when Christ talks about peace, let's examine it very briefly. When you're able to provide for your family, you have peace in that. When you are receiving blessings from God, you have peace in that. When you don't have to look over your shoulder and think somebody's going to take away what has been provided for you, you have peace in that. When you are able to provide for yourself and your family and help others, you have peace in that. Peace is a very broad spectrum, and it covers a lot of areas in our lives. And Jesus let them know, if the house be worthy, let your peace come upon it. But if it be not worthy, let your peace return to you. So the blessing that I would have given to those people that took you in, I'll still give it to you. It's going to come back to you, so you'll have the blessings that I was going to give to you, or that I'm giving to you, and the blessings that I was going to give to them. You're double blessed. That's what we find in the meaning in the original text. So what do we find? When you are rejected, you still have peace. When you are rejected, you have the blessings of Christ. When you are rejected, you're still being uplifted by Him who sits high. When you are rejected, you're blessed even more. Did we ever look at peace in such a way? Verse 14. And whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, talking about that house that is not worthy. They said they were, but when you got there and you start giving it, they didn't want to hear it. When ye depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Now, I'm not going to get into what the Jews did when they would be in the company or in the presence in the land of heathens, in the land of the Gentiles, so forth. And so I'm not going to get into what they were doing. I'm just going to stick with what Jesus said to do. And you're going to see that it's tied together when you do your study, but we're not going to address that. We're going to look at straight at what Jesus is talking about, because there is a history with that. But we're looking at Jesus. Jesus said, and whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, when you depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Now, understand this. Don't use that term loosely. Talking about when this thing happened and that thing happened, and when you left, you shook the dust off your feet. First of all, you have to look at that and apply it to the way Jesus applied it. First of all, He called them. Then He endued them with power. See, if these steps don't apply to you, Then I'll be careful about talking about when you leave someplace, you dusting, you shaking the dust off your feet, because I've heard it used loosely time after time again. Be careful with that. Be careful with that, because Jesus gave them specifics on when to do that. He sent them face to face. He called them and sent them. He endued them with power against unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all manner of sickness and all manner of disease. See, don't take everything that you see in Scripture and use it loosely. You better understand it before you start using it. But he said, and whosoever shall not receive you, nor hear your words, when ye depart out of that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. Verily I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Amorah in the day of judgment than for that city. What do we see happening here? We find Jesus letting them know that when judgment comes upon that house or upon that city, upon that place, he said it'll be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah when judgment comes, when it's time to bring punishment. And it doesn't necessarily mean the day of judgment, that major day of judgment. He's talking about when he chooses to punish that house, that city, whatever. He said it'll be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah when that punishment comes than for that city. Now, what do we find? We find that Jesus is saying the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, who were included in that incident, he said we know that they had not received this word like Jesus has sent them to deliver it. And Jesus said he'll be more tolerable of those who have not heard and were doing the things that they did, as opposed to those who had it presented to them and they rejected it and said, you got to go. So all of these little pop-up religions that's hanging on the coattails of Christianity, but going in different directions with these sects and all this stuff, the sects, the sects. Be careful and don't get yourself involved with them, because before you know it, Jesus won't be the center of your praise and of your worship. Jesus must always be the center of your praise and your worship. There is no way around it, because he is the Savior. He came and shed his blood that we might live with God eternally. God is serious about that. He's serious about sending his Son to die for his creation. It'll be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah when he chooses to punish them than for that house or for that city. Doors of the church are open. Blessed assurance.